Well, another week once again, and a lot of progression has been made for Mr. Crossy in week 2, but in ways that I didn't originally plan. Unlike last week's vid where I went from smallest to largest, I'm just going to go through what I did from start to finish, because there was a lot done. Following in from last week, I continued to dress the houses. Around 6 more were done. As of the end of this week, the team has dressed 30% of Calkirk's interiors. And this is great progress considering that there are 109 houses. Here are some screenshots of some of the houses that I did. My composer Jimmy let me know that their supervisor was kind of requested to see a combination of gameplay and audio together for their next update. Whilst this is by no means achievable with any project management pipeline this early on, I did need to benchmark some standards for the project, so I created a menu scene using the music Jimmy created. And within this menu, I managed to use last week's color grading, and based on the feedback that was provided, I managed to also slightly reduce the colors just a little bit. That mainly was achieved by desaturating the skybox, and then what I did was I then transitioned a lot of the settings over to Unity, which is now easily clonable for all the other scenes. I also created the UI in Photoshop using some really lovely brush tools to create this kind of messy crossword square effect. And that instantly conveys to the player when they open our game or just look at a screenshot what the game might be about. And it also gives a really unique but consistent UI tone. The crows and other atmospheric additions, like the ambient sounds that I added, really set the tone for what Daniel is going to reference with his future Foley work. Now, I'm just going to hit play and you can, listen to about a minute of this, or if you want to skip to the next thing, skip a minute ahead. Doing this particular task really helps set the tone and overall reference for a few asset-related features of the game, being, audio, UI, and post-processing. Normally, these are implemented around 50% or more into development, which we are a few weeks away from reaching. However, I'll catch up with the other disciplines lecturers and actually let them know how game production timeline works, and also kind of help manage their expectations, as we can't go and actually give them gameplay footage every week. Realistically, what's requested will likely come in about 2 to 3 weeks' time and beyond. And at the moment, all the audio boys really need to do is kind of keep on creating, sourcing, and testing. The main task this week was the frames per second issue. Let's call it Project 15 Frames, because oh my god, this task was scary. I wasn't really also planning on doing it this week, but upon hitting play in our Calkirk scene, we were getting on average about 15 frames per second, which is beyond awful. This is a combination of around 50,000 draw calls and quite a few thousand subpasses. And to kind of put this into layman's terms, the game is just rendering too much. It's calling on too many textures, too many real-time light maps, and it's doing way more work than what we actually want the game to be doing. So yes, we could leave it in and, do it in the polishing phase of the game, but it actually slows down production time. And when you consider load times and Unity performance and how often us and programmers actually need to test an engine, something had to be done about this. So the first thing I did was look at LODs, and this stands for level of detail. As the houses we are using are bought assets, I didn't really want to have to re-import them into Blender, create LODs, and then, import them and export them back into Unity and then have to make new prefabs and everything like that. So what I did was I used a really fantastic tool that I've had laying around for a while called PolyFew. And this tool, it's really, really cool. Basically what you do is you simply hit in all the parameters you need to make your LOD. Basically the amount of disruption you're going to have to the UVs and to the mesh, and then you basically just hit bake. And from there, it bakes, it disrupts the mesh layer, and then it bases that based on distance. Now, this on average takes about 5 to 20 minutes per bake, and often I'd need to bake multiple times because I wouldn't really get that render the way I wanted it to. So as a result, I actually spent around 24 hours, yes, 24 hours over a few days combined, purely baking LODs and making adjustments accordingly. And this gave us 45 frames per second after doing this, which is, yes, a significant improvement, but still nowhere near where I wanted it to be. The next thing I did was install Bakery, which is a GPU-centric light mapper, which is significantly better than Unity's own light mapper. To bake a scene like the one we have with the Unity light mapper, it would take around 8 to 13 hours, which involves leaving the computer unattended to render, which is an incredible waste of time and resources. So Bakery, it uses my GPU, and I have an RTX, which is a pretty good card. So I can get results within somewhere between 5 minutes to 1 hour, depending on the scene. And after modifying some of my features of my RTX cards and tweaking around with some of the scene's lights, and after doing a few bakes and around 8 hours of tweaking, I managed to bake the lights in the scene. The last thing I did was just a cheeky occlusion cull bake to the map. That doesn't take very long. But after all of that, we are now receiving a lovely, on average, 145 frames per second, which is a significant improvement over 15. Now, the next thing I did was actually create a music rundown for the Safehouse music. I need to keep on giving things to Jimmy. I spent about 3 hours scouring through soundtracks and found some really good reference pieces. My YouTube algorithm is ruined though, it's just suggesting nothing but overly emotive music. But anyway, we're gonna go for a Gone Home meets Ether 1 vibe. Long drawn out pads, sparse piano in random moments. Here are some snippets of the 3 songs we referenced. Again, skip ahead 1 minute if you want to bypass this. Jimmy should have the song based on the reference pieces you just heard in about a week, probably Friday. But anyway, we should probably move on to the last few things that I did this week, and that was really just dressing the safe house. And it's something that I'm probably going to be doing next week as I still haven't finished it. But as I'm going, I'm also baking the lights so I can really ensure that the mood is right, because that's going to be really important. But from these screenshots, you can kind of see that I'm going for a Gone Home inspiration within the house itself. Again, I should also have this completed by the end of the week. Along with the safe house, I'll be looking to import all the textured assets from Nini as she's finalizing them, and then I'll prefab them up, along with creating a really clear and concise plan for the rollout of the tutorial over next week. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and leave a comment or shoot me a message if you have any questions about anything. Take care. Bye.